Melissa. We already know each other, but for the purposes of everyone who's watching this, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Anita Casavantes Bradford, and I am an associate professor of history and Chicano Latino studies, and I am a first-gen college student. Why don't you introduce yourself as well?
I'm Melissa Sigona. I am also a first-gen college student, and I'm currently a senior at UCI.
And what's your major?
History with a minor in education.
Okay. So I'm curious about thinking back on your childhood. When was it that you knew that you were going to college?
I think I always wanted to go to college just because I come from a very small town, and like my parents had me when they were teenagers in high school. And so for me, it always been like a way out is like getting to college and leaving my hometown.
And when did you realize that? How young were you?
My aunt, my mom's older sister went away to college, and I think her and my uncle had always talked about it. So I don't think there was ever a time when I wasn't planning on going to college, but I know I wanted to go to a private Christian college when I was really little, and even that was my first choice college, applying to college, and I'm really glad that I did not go to a small private Christian college.
So I know for me, there was a specific moment in third grade when I won the third grade academic honors medal, right? And I was raised mostly by a single mom who herself only finished 10th grade, right? And this moment in third grade when I won this academic honors medal was for me kind of this wake-up call of, wow, I'm smart. And if I go to school, if I study hard, that could be sort of a path to a different future, right? What was it that you imagined when you thought about going to college? How was that going to shape your path?
I don't know what I imagined. I honestly did not know what to expect. Like I'd seen TV, and I'd heard stories from like friends, older sisters, how they expected college. It wasn't what I expected. I remember coming here and thinking like it was kind of easier than I expected. Like I thought that the classes would be much harder, but it was really shocking to go into like a lecture hall of like 300 people when my graduating class was smaller than that of high school. So that was shocking.
So let's talk a little bit about high school. So you're in high school, you know that you want to go to college. How did you figure out what classes you had to take, how to apply, all of that? Because you didn't have, parents to help you.
Honestly, my biggest hope through high school was my boyfriend. He was 2 years older than me, and when we met, I didn't know, I was a freshman. I didn't know anything about AP classes. I knew you had to take the SAT, but I didn't know like the specifics of how to be successful in high school. But he helped me and kind of guided me through like what classes to take, what teachers I would probably like, what I wouldn't like. And then I also had a really awesome counselor who was just like sat down with me, and she helped me do all of my applications, and she helped me do FAFSA for the first time. And like without her and my boyfriend, I don't think I would have been able to get this far.
So fast forward, you're accepted to UC Irvine. Were you accepted anywhere else?
I was accepted to Point Loma Nazarene, my first choice, which was a private Christian college, San Jose State, and then UC Irvine. I didn't apply to very many colleges.
Okay. And why did you choose UCI?
I'm UC Blue and Gold, which means my parents are low income. So I got pretty much a full ride scholarship, and I only have to pay for housing. And the private Christian college that I wanted to go to originally, it would have been like $20,000 a year after aid. So it was just unrealistic to want to go there.
Okay, so it was purely a financial decision.
Pretty much, and it was San Jose State, and I did not want to go to San Jose State. That's where everyone went. It's right next to my hometown, so it's like that was my backup school. Okay. Did not want to go there.
Okay. So you chose UCI. Think back to your first week one of quarter one.
I was lost.
Tell me about that. Tell me how it felt.
It was very overwhelming. I was very lost. I didn't get on-campus housing, so like I didn't have friends in a dorm. I had these two really shy girls that didn't ever want to leave our apartment or go do anything. And what kind of got me connected my freshman year is there ended up being a girl that we had all of our classes together, and I kind of started hanging out with her hall, and then I took a freshman seminar. And I think if I hadn't have taken that freshman seminar, like my trajectory in college would have been very different.
Okay. So in that first quarter, we know from talking to first-gen students here at UCI, as well as from research that scholars have done about first-gen experiences, that transition can be challenging, right? So when you think back to that first quarter, what were the challenges that you faced in that first quarter, and how did you overcome them?
I think I was so afraid of failing. I was so afraid of not being able to pass my classes and stay here that I kind of overcompensated by like going to office hours a lot. I got to know my TAs really well because I was in Humanities Core, which is an intensive reading and writing course here. So I got to know the TA really well. She became like one of my best friends. Like I was always in her office. And then I only took 2 classes because that was a 8-unit class, and then I had a GE. And the GE was kind of like shockingly weird just because it was like a midterm and a final, and that was it, and weekly homework. And so it was so different than my small humanities class that I ended up doing okay on the midterm, so I ended up doing fine in the class. But I was really afraid of failing.
Why were you so afraid of failing?
Because I'm an overachiever, and I did not want to fail my first quarter. Like my GPA my first quarter ended up being better than my high school GPA.
Wow. So that's really unusual, actually, for first-gen students. Being an overachiever is not. That's pretty typical for most first-gen students, that they are overachievers, that they are kind of doing things that no one in their family has done before. But often that first quarter can be tough academically for first-gen students. And so you represent this other example of how the first quarter could go. If you were going to give advice to first-gen students who want to replicate your success in that first quarter, tell me 3 things that worked for you in that first quarter.
Talk to your professors, do your reading, and look at the syllabus. I think the biggest mistake is people don't look at the syllabus and like write down everything they have to do for that class, and they miss due dates, or they have a question, or they're afraid to talk to a professor. And learn how to send a proper email. Like that's a big deal.
Okay, so tell me about a proper email. What's a proper email look like?
I just remember being a freshman and I didn't know anything about the Mr. and Mrs. and you're not supposed to address professors as Mrs. Smith or however you like address them as doctor or professor. And I remember like sitting there at humanities orientation, having this crazy professor standing up in front of everyone yelling at us like, do not address your emails as Mr. and Mrs. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Why is that a big deal? But I think her warning kind of helped me get in the mindset of thinking more professionally in my emails.
Right. No, I'm laughing because I do. I get these quarters every email that are addressed to, in my case, I have a dual surname, right? Casavantes Bradford. And so I get endless variations on Mrs. Bradford. Sometimes I get Miss, right? Which is bizarre because I'm 42 and married, right? So, but yeah, it's always a bit jarring to a professor when you get an email. I think especially for women professors to get an email that says Miss or Mrs. because right away it's like, no, I'm a professor. I have a PhD. I worked for that. Why are you not using the proper title, right? And that's not the right foot to start off on with a professor.
Definitely. It's weird though because in high school, like, I didn't know that the professors had PhDs when I came into college. Like that's not like common knowledge. I feel like everyone was Mr. and Mrs. So coming to college, it was such a drastic change that it was shocking. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember Googling my professors and being like, they went to Princeton, they went to Harvard, they went to Stanford. I was like, these are really smart people.
Right.
And they're published.
Right.
And they've like done cool things. And
I remember that too, because I was a transfer student. I went to community college first before I went to university. So many of my community college instructors had master's degrees, right? A couple of them had PhDs, but they had chosen a teaching track, so they were not widely published. When I first got to university and was in a class where a professor assigned their book, I just was so surprised by that because you don't make the connection necessarily that these are scholars as well that write books, that write articles, right? And I think that actually kind of leads to something that I want to talk about a bit. UCI is an R1, a research-intensive university, which means that professors are often really busy with their research, which means that it can be harder to get face time with professors, right? They can feel like they're inaccessible. So how have you built relationships with professors?
I feel like I've been really lucky with the professors that I've gotten, and I've kind of, I don't know, cheated the system and only taken professors that I know that I will like.
But how do you find that out?
I took a freshman seminar with a professor who I want to do what you do is basically what happened when I took her class. And I started emailing her about professors. Would I like this professor? Do you think that this fits into what I would think? Okay. And she recommended taking your class my sophomore year because she was like, I saw her job talk. She'll be a good professor. You should take Professor Casavantes. So I kind of cheated the system and used Rate My Professor. So.
Okay, well, cheated the system, I mean, that has kind of a negative connotation, right? But I would say that You were proactive, right? You made one connection with a professor that you liked, that you trusted, and you asked them for mentorship. You asked them for guidance, right? I think that's really important in general. And I know that that's something that I had to learn to do, because I think sometimes when you're first gen, when you're from a low-income family, when you're a kid that grew up kind of quick and you learn to rely on yourself and not to necessarily rely on others, it doesn't always occur to us to ask for help, right? Learning to ask for help, to email a professor and say, hey, would this other professor be a good fit for me? That's fantastic. So where did you get that idea?
She told me if I ever needed help to come to her. And I was really nervous because I was doing research for Hume Core. And I was like, I saw someone in the library reading the book that she wrote. And I was like, I should email this professor and find out if I could talk to her about doing research with her, like using her research to do my research paper. And it kind of all went from there. I had to set up a meeting with her. At the time, she wasn't even teaching. She was the dean. So she wasn't even teaching, meeting with students. And I remember going into like the office and they're being like, she doesn't talk to students. And I was like, I have a meeting with her at 11, so can you just go tell her that I'm here? And she has been hugely influential and greatly helpful through my call.
So for me, there's two takeaways from that, right? Don't be intimidated just because someone has doctor behind their name or even dean behind their name, right? Don't be intimidated. Reach out, right? What's the worst they can do?
They could say no.
They could say no, right? It's not the end of the world. And secondly, if a professor says, email me, or I'm interested in helping you, or come to office hours, believe them, right? I think that a lot of times students are intimidated by their professors, but maybe...
I think I was more like shock and awe of my professors. I was intimidated, but more of like in awe of them. So it made me want to get to know them. Like I tell my friends, I like my professors, not as like I'm like a suck-up student. Like I genuinely like them. I want to know what their research is. I want to get to know them because I think it's cool. Like I think they're cool people.
It's a great attitude. Now, what about the sort of more survival aspect of being here? I know that you've had to work all the way through.
Yeah, I started working. My first year I didn't work. My second year I started working. I had an internship with the History Project, which was just a little internship, and I did like research with them and went to conferences that they put on. My second year I started working, or my third year I worked almost full time. And then right now I had 2 jobs, but now I only have 1. But I've pretty much worked.
How's that been?
I've been lucky with my jobs that they've been flexible, and like my third year I nannied all year, and so I would take my homework and do my homework while I was working. It has definitely been a struggle, but it is nice to have extra income where I'm not super strapped for cash.
What about time management though?
I have become OCD with my time management, like very type A personality. Like I have this crazy planner where I color coordinate things and write down everything I possibly have to do and make schedules. And I learned that my freshman year during finals week, when I was like, okay, I have to cover all of this material, all of these lectures, all of these readings. How in the world am I going to do this in a week? And so I just said, let's make it feasible and say I have to do this chapter this day, this chapter the next day, these lectures. And it kind of has developed from that and become more, I guess, insanely busy.
Now, do you have an actual, like an agenda that you
Yeah, like a
down?
written agenda. And then I have Google Keep where I keep like bullet points of like the most important things.
Okay. In an average week, how much do you work related to, like school work, right? So between classes, studying, prepping for assignments, etc., how many hours do you work?
I'm also the vice president of my sorority, so that takes up a lot of time too. I'm probably busy like 10 to 12 hours a day, like just doing things.
Okay, so your work week is a 50 to 60 hour week.
Probably.
Okay. And do you think that's what an undergrad should be thinking of in terms of a work week when they come?
Well, I think they should think of, it's not, so I don't work 12 hours every day on school stuff, but maybe one day I work 14 hours and the next day I work 8 or 3, or I work for 16 hours on the weekend. Like, it depends on the day and what I have to do, and honestly, sometimes I need a break, and I almost never do anything on Friday nights. Not gonna lie, after school, I'm done. Like, I take that break, and then sometimes on Saturday too, but you should expect to do enough work you should expect to do the reading. Like that's something I've really learned in college. Normally in my classes I do all the reading until the midterm, gauge the midterm, and then say, based on all the reading I did and how I scored on the midterm, how much of the reading do I actually have to do to get to the final. And so until the midterm, I'm really busy with doing the reading and trying to do all my work to see if I have some wiggle room where I maybe don't have to read everything.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges for incoming, not just for first-gen students, but for freshmen in general, is that, you know, there are these syllabi and they say, do this reading, do this, but nobody's checking up on it.
Yeah, there's no accountability in a lot of classes, and that's hard. Like, that's hard for me too, because I can push it off a couple days, but like, then it starts to build up, and then you're like, I'm like 100 pages behind on reading. This is ridiculous. So it's really important to stay on top of your reading, and even like make that paper be your accountability. Like if it says that you have to do something, pretend it's like your mom. Like she's saying you have to do that reading by that date. Get it done.
Okay, mom or grandma or
yes, whoever took care of you, whoever's been the authoritarian in your life, like make sure that that paper is that person.
That you take it seriously. Okay, I like that. What about social life? How's it been being first gen at UCI?
It was hard for me my first 2 quarters because I didn't live on campus. I had a really hard time making friends. It was different than high school because you have friends that you make in classes, but then, well, that's all you really have in common, or you only see them a couple times a week. So my spring quarter, I decided to go through recruitment and join a sorority, and that has given me like the social aspect that I really needed in college. I have a home, I have friends that I have deeper connections with than just what we're studying, and so that has tremendously helped me feel like connected to campus, because I did feel very disconnected from campus. There's a lot of people here. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to just go up to random people and start talking to people.
Right. Did you ever wonder, especially in that first quarter, when you were looking at other students, did you ever wonder how many of them were the first in their families to go to college? How many of them were from low-income backgrounds? Did you assume that they were all, you know?
I still kind of assume that everyone's not like wealthy, and then I'll go shopping or to eat with someone, or I notice that they have like a Louis Vuitton purse or something ridiculous, and I'm like, okay, so not everyone is a poor, struggling college student like they pretend to be. Got it. It's not the whole campus. You can definitely tell that, like at first it didn't click, but then as I've gotten older and like become more observant of the people around me, I'm like, yeah, you guys aren't all struggling. Like there's no way.
So you actually came in assuming that everyone was a poor college student.
Well, yeah, because you see it on TV. Everyone's like, I'm a poor college student. I don't have money. So I'm like, yeah, everyone's poor and struggling. No, and then I'm shocked with how many of my friends are so dependent on their parents. Like their parents give them money every month. Their parents have access to all their bank accounts. I'm like, yeah, my parents don't, and like my parents, if I'm in trouble, may know if I need money, but my parents don't really know my financial situation. They kind of let me handle my finances, and I thought that was a norm, but I've learned that that's really not the norm in college.
What about sort of, let's call it emotional well-being or like mental health, right? College can be stressful. It can be even more stressful when this is such a new experience, when you're the first in the family. How have you dealt with stress?
I have a really good friends group, and we have Denny's night, which is whenever we're feeling stressed, we go drink a lot of coffee and vent about all of our problems at Denny's. And I've taken hard classes and cried, and had my friends that have been like, it's okay, it's not the end of the world. But my friends have helped me deal with like my emotional well-being, and also reading. I read for fun a lot, and so whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, or I can't like quiet my mind when I need to fall asleep, I'll just read a book for fun, which I know is a really nerdy answer, but that's...
Well, I like to do that too. So tell me the thing you're proudest of about being a first-gen student.
I'm proudest that I was able to take a graduate course and be successful. That is my and present at a conference. That is my #1 proudest moment in college.
Cool. And so this year, UCI is going to be 60% first-gen students in its incoming freshman class. What are your final words for them?
Read your syllabus and talk to your professors, and don't be afraid of them.
Cool. Thank you.